Hey, welcome to Afterlife University, and tonight's class is going to be an interesting one. It has to do with sociological research about the afterlife, which was something I've been kind of researching or practicing since I began having lots of out-of-body experiences back in like 2014. I haven't seen any other OBEers or authors actually cover this area that I'm aware of. So I want to kind of introduce that concept a little bit and see where it goes. You may be watching this on Afterlife Topics or maybe somewhere else, maybe on YouTube. If so, then hello, welcome. This is the format we usually do with classes. So it'll be a longer presentation and a discussion afterwards. So thank you for joining us. If you want to get involved, you can shoot me a message or check out afterlifetopics.com/university. And that's where you can join the classes and also become a patron of the work we do at Afterlife Topics, which basically allows me to keep doing what I'm doing and hopefully be able to expand into the future and keep spreading awareness about the subject of life after death and all the many topics that goes with it. All right, so we'll begin the presentation. Let me just pull it up. And I will apologize in advance if my audio is going like this, up and down, like it's, completely schizophrenic, because I think Zoom is doing this. Zoom likes to adjust my audio levels, and then if I get too loud, it just cranks the volume down by itself, and I can't do anything about it. So until I can figure out a solution for that, then keep your finger on the volume key in case you have to turn it up if I become very quiet, but then you need to turn it back down if I get too loud. So it is a pain in the butt, so I'm sorry about that. Okay, so astral points of view. So learning about the other side sociologically. As a preface, there's a lot of like different conclusions and ideas that I really came into a mindset about as a result of having these experiences. I just saw like on a thread I made on one of the groups, somebody was basically saying that they believe like the afterlife is a completely self-generated world, that we create our own world. Everything is kind of like an illusion in a sense. And a lot of people do believe that way, but like this presentation is going on the assumption that this is not true, that it is as we would say, like a consensus environment that's shared by many people. That's always been my experience. Some people believe that when we die, we enter into this little self-contained world, that all of it is, I don't want to say illusionary, but it's like its own little artificial universe that we create that we can explore, kind of like a dream. And some people really believe that. They believe that it's just how do you say, just it's just like a little microcosm. It's not like a real world or a place where you can meet other people. I do feel like this is a misconception. In my experiences, the other side is a civilization. And when you look into like spiritualism, when you look into like the accounts of the other side from the 1900s, if you look at like Anthea Borgia or Leslie Flint or other sources, even who else? Like Minnie Harrison and pretty much many of the great physical mediums. People who come through basically describe it as a civilization. They're not saying that it's in like it's like an artificial environment, and that this has been my experience as well. So that's a big point to make. And this also happens with people in the out-of-body experience community. Sometimes they get the impression that maybe it's all like a construct. And again, like I can't buy that. I can go into maybe in a different video, a different presentation, I'll talk about why that impression comes about. So to continue. So to date, no researcher I'm aware of has explored the other side from a sociological perspective. This includes looking at it as a literal place and considering differences in that civilization compared to our own. While there are many realms, the most obvious to explore is the middle astral, the earth astral, which is where I commonly find myself. This also appears to be where a majority, but not all, people go to. That's why so many of us have these dreams. It seems like we're still here on this planet, but things are a bit different. Usually these are memories that are piping into our brain from lives on the astral earth level, which in many ways maintains a lot of similarity to this world. During astral projection trips, research is a primary thing on my mind as I try to gather as much information before it ends. I had a really good astral trip a couple days ago to visit my mom. But in all situations, usually it only lasts like a matter of minutes for me, like maybe 10 minutes. So it's like I have 10 minutes to run around, gather information, talk to people, and try to report all that back. It's basically what I am as a journalist. So I'm just trying to get the info and then come back with stuff I can work with. Um, so as I was saying, misconceptions are abound when people are doing this as well, because out-of-body explorers sometimes have these tainted experiences which are interfered with by dreaming or hallucinating. So to be able to have a proper OBE, you have to kind of puncture through the dreamscape which your mind is producing. So to have a pure experience, I consider no experience valid unless I have 100% lucidity and I feel myself physically leaving my body. So I have to be there feeling as real and solid as the world we're in right now. And preferably I should have felt an energetic shift happen when I've left my body. So if those two things are happening, then I feel like I can report whatever I discover with accuracy. If you don't do those things, you might be reporting stuff that you're hallucinating. And that's because you're not having a pure experience. So it's something to keep in mind. Also keep in mind with other people to do this, because I hear people come with very, very strange descriptions of the other side, like it's populated entirely by pink elephants and the skies are made of cotton candy and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, most likely they were having a dream experience and it was layered on top of like an astral experience. So having these OBEs, I began, I've only really done this a couple of times, but I also do it on a smaller scale with individual people I meet, doing focus groups. So on a couple of occasions, I've been able to round up random people and poll them about topics. So in this case, I will literally get people off the street and get them like in a circle and then start asking them questions. And they're all usually some of them are annoyed or surprised, but I mean, just like in this world, you catch people off guard. You can kind of make them do anything if you're persuasive enough. So I'm just grabbing people randomly and like, hey, look, I'm doing this. I need information. I'm from another plane of existence, and I'm going to ask you guys some questions real quick. So I've done this a couple times, twice really. So to give an example, so in a sampling of 9 people, 80% of them had memories of a life on Earth. A similar number claimed to be from this world, while a smaller number, about 2 of the 9, said that they were born on that side. They never incarnated here on Earth, and they find the whole thought of doing that to be distasteful. But at least in that sampling, like a majority, though, had memories of a life here. There was minor consensus, or about 80% plus of these residents experiencing minor sicknesses like colds. But severe illnesses were impossible by comparison to this world. So basically when I brought up this question, they said, they don't get sick like here, but they get minor sicknesses like colds, but you're not going to have something severe. All people in both groups were aware of manifestation, creating things by thought, but all considered it as a skill or something that requires learning to do it properly. So none of them basically said that anybody could just create anything they want at any time, but it's literally like some people take classes to be able to uncover that potential. So some civilization observations about life on the other side. Many experiences I've had have been split between astral Tucson, Arizona, which is a little mid-sized city I grew up in Arizona, and astral Los Angeles, and this is probably related to my own residences being in both these places. I've come to discover that these cities are bustling metropolises with greater aesthetic value than here. So astral Tucson has easily a larger population than our world's roughly 800,000 people in the city. I observed a large and highly developed downtown area with relatively little similarity to Tucson, Arizona on our side. So it was much more polished nicer looking. Whereas Tucson, Arizona, here you have like three kind of rinky-dink skyscrapers, and it's kind of funky looking. Still nice. I still like Tucson, but it was a bit different looking on that side. It seems like a bigger city. By contrast, Los Angeles has far less traffic or unpleasantness, with European-style streets on the west side. That said, there's also I'll talk about this later. Just like in LA here, there's like Skid Row and really nasty areas. I think all these cities have like lower plane conditions that seamlessly kind of integrate with the whole city when you find yourself going into like a darker, lower vibration type of place, which in many ways it's not that different than how it even is on this world, except on that side there is a dimensional component to it as well. My conclusion is that territories are approximations of this planet with like the same names, and there's a closeness and spirit to each other, but it's not really the same place. I do find that street names are the same and things like that, so it's kind of modeled after the city here, or even could be vice versa. Our city is modeled after the city there, but you can expect different buildings and a different society. Typically speaking, it is more technologically advanced on pretty much every level, and there's a lot of things that would be alien to us for us to look at, but it's like normal there. Some thoughts on our world, the Earth plane, as they say it. When talking to people and talking to like these focus groups, our world is considered to be a lower dimension by most regards. It's not exactly like celebrated as, in fact, if anything, the Earth plane is a subject of some level of fear. Existence or incarnation into this world is known, but it's not widely discussed among people. Even among those who had incarnated here, sometimes they refer to it as having been like a bad dream. So they had this weird phase of their lives, and then they woke back up and finished with all that, and then they've kind of put it behind them. And it kind of seems like that's the mentality that I've encountered anyway, that the people have had these experiences on this world, but to them it's just like an experience they had, and then they move on past it. To the point, it's nearly a paranormal topic, just like their world is to ours. Now, it's clearly not as alien to them as it is for us to talk about this type of thing openly. On that side, they know about multi-dimensions, and they know about different similar planes and places we can incarnate into. But it's still a weird enough topic where discussion of topics like, hey, I'm from the Earth plane, is enough to elicit surprise and curiosity among people. Earth plane is commonly known terminology. However, it can be confusing since their world is also the Earth. So, we can call their world the astral plane, and they call us the Earth plane, but it's weird because they're already on the Earth, so that doesn't make any sense. And maybe there's other terminologies. I hear people here calling this place 3D and calling that place 4D. And I suppose that may even make a bit more sense. Their world in the, I guess you could actually say 4D space. I wrote 3D, but really we could say 4D space is considered. Oh wait, their world in the. Oh, okay, I get it. Sorry, I got a little bit confused. Obviously, I wrote these bullet points when I was tired or something. Okay, so they consider in their world, our 3D world, to be hard and like non-magical. So like our density, our dimension is this sort of pathetic version of theirs, because all the stuff that they do and enjoy, like creating things with their thoughts, practicing magical abilities, being able to like communicate with animals telepathically, all these types of things are basically off limits here. So this is like playing a video game on hard mode. That's sort of how they see it. Colloquially, on that side, Their like abilities to have mind to matter interaction is basically just known as magic. And our world is magically impotent. So we can't practice uh, mind interference over matter. Here, the matter has a dominance over us. So to me, it's almost still a mysterious thing because even to people on this middle astral level, they don't have all the answers. Why, why does our side exist? Why does this lower density version of their planet exist? But it's here and it's part of the grand scheme of things, I guess. So some thoughts on other worlds. So we talk about the middle astral plane, but what about the worlds quote above that, or just alien foreign environments altogether? So a limited sample size is aware that they were in an astral territory, and they would say that their civilization was one of the quote lowest astral realms. So the magnificent middle astral plane, kind of a magical idealized version of this world, is still the bottom of the astral totem pole, so to speak. But they also indicated that this was something taught to them in school or otherwise drilled into them via like an educational process. And to me, it's unknown how much of this format or model of reality is taken seriously. Because one guy basically laughed about it. It's like, yeah, we're allegedly the lowest level of the astral plane, whatever the heck that means. In other words, like they're living their life, but people kind of come at them probably in the educational area with all this gobbledygook about, this is the middle astral and, we must be thinking about ascending up to higher levels, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like we hear about in spiritualism on this side. But I came to find that most people have only passing knowledge of this. They don't take it that seriously. To them, it's just like, the universe continues. Why do we have to put up systems and structures about all of it? Let me just live my life. Few are concerned with rising up to these higher realms, and as others like Jurgen have recounted, this type of thing appears to happen naturally, depending on how someone leads their life. So somebody who is a more advanced spirit, if you want to use that terminology, it's not like they decide like, well, I'm going to go on this special diet and I'm going to go from point A to point Z, and by following the specific path and practicing all these spiritual principles. It's more like something just happens naturally, given enough time, as somebody practices basically like self-development, consciousness abilities, the ability to move around, explore different places. On that note, more advanced individuals can indeed travel between realms and planets' densities nearly at will. But for average residents of this middle astral level, this is an impressive feat. So somebody who can do this is like somebody who has a real power that is impressive to them. There's not a lot of awareness about lower realms, although it's possible lower realms integrate with the middle astral based on collective thought patterns, as I discussed a few minutes ago, same as our, quote, bad sides of town. So you walk down a bad street and we're in this kind of sketchy area. On that side, I feel like a bad side of town could be like its own pocket universe almost. So it's like there's that segregation we hear about, but it happens very naturally on that side. Whereas here, it's kind of like everything is joined together. And this is something I have to try to figure out more. I don't have full answers about that. It's a complicated topic. Total ignorance. I found a smaller number of middle astral residents appear unaware of anything beyond their world, similar to materialist physicalists on this side. This could be the result of deeply held entrenched beliefs and being unaware they had, quote, died on this side, so they have a failure to see any kind of transitions even happened. So basically, someone's lived in their house, they fall over dead, they appear in the same house on the middle astral level. They notice things are a bit different, something obviously happened, the furniture is different, whatever it might be. But they just decided to go back about their daily business. They're like, well, that's weird. Maybe I'm losing my marbles. and they just keep living their life with the same entrenched belief systems. And this is just a phenomenon. Some people are like this. This is a result of the fact that the astral plane can be just like this world to the, to the point where it's possible for people to have no idea that they died. So you will meet people like this who will still talk about like death and dying as if it's going to happen to them when, they haven't figured it out yet. It's like, yo, you're not, you no longer have to worry about these types of things. And then they'll call you crazy if you try to explain this. And if you talk to other people, I mean, they'll just say, yeah, some people around here, they're just like that. They haven't figured it out yet, So somebody appears like that on the astral side, and maybe they have neighbors who are like, yeah, Ed just appeared in his house. Looks like he finally transitioned over, but he won't accept anybody telling him what happened. So just be nice to him, come by, give him presents, give him gifts, try to keep him happy, and maybe eventually he'll figure it all out. So that's kind of the philosophy that goes on with people like this. It is unfortunate that people end up like this. It's because the freaking like brainwashed belief systems on this planet. It's just it's a real tragedy. So we're looking at great similarities and great differences on the nearby closest level to us. I have yet to speak to someone on the middle astral who, quote, misses the earth. Sometimes we hear about these alleged accounts from people on the other side saying, I miss being able to eat chocolate, I miss being able to hug people or have basic physical sensation. And when you hear accounts like this, I mean, these are people not on the middle astral. They're in like a pure energy environment. Somebody maybe told them that this place doesn't exist, or they fooled themselves into it, and they feel like they have no access to the world that they used to live in. So I do hear an increasing number of communications from the other side of people saying things like that, but you'll never hear people from this side saying that they miss eating chocolate. And I can say that because I've eaten chocolate on that side and it tastes like chocolate. In fact, when we're dealing with fourth dimensional types of realms, things are enhanced. So flavor could be enhanced compared to here. Sensations could be enhanced. So there's no like downgrading your existence if you like physical solid existences. If you want to be free floating consciousness or pure energy, then I think there's advantages and disadvantages to that as well. But certainly one of those disadvantages would be the abandoning of like the physical sensory apparatus, which we continue on the middle astral. Life, ambitions, and existences continue forward. When I was projecting into my parents' place yesterday, I went on, I mean, there was the TV was on and I was watching the local news. So if there's a local news in Tucson, Arizona in the astral side, that means that there's people working and having careers and having lives, right? Somebody decided to become that news anchor who now, lives there and does the news, and to them it's just as normal as doing it here. I mean, it's their culture. It's a whole different world. There's a lot of magical ability that's completely missing from this realm. So, I mean, just imagine being able to modify things with your thoughts. Imagine being able to potentially fly. Imagine being able to essentially cast spells. That's the best way to put it. And imagine all that being possible in a modern world like the one we're in now. And that gives you an idea almost of what life can be like on that side. And that's completely missing here. Many people appreciate these differences because most have memories of having had an incarnation on this side, where such lifestyles, powers, abilities are absent. So imagine this world without the fear of aging, without the fear of disease, and an abundance of these kind of magical abilities. And you may have a good idea of why the Earth plane is a bit of a feared existence. People, they don't, at least when they're on the middle astral level, it's not very appealing, the idea of coming back here. Maybe on these higher levels is when we make that decision, when, to reincarnate on the Earth plane. Maybe we're drunk, maybe on the higher astral, like we're all drinking some shots of whiskey and we think, okay, great, let's reincarnate. What could possibly go wrong with that? But then we get here and it's like, damn, this is as hard as I thought it was going to be. I found no evidence that the middle astral is a thought-created or illusion-based world, or a self-generated or subjective realm as claimed by a minority of OBE authors, as well as people who theorize about the afterlife. So again, when we're dealing with a bustling population where you can talk to random people, and like in one case, I've told everybody a story when I met a random person on the astral side, and I got all of his contact information. I was able to look him up on this side and find like his Facebook obituary. Then he basically told me he had died about 6 months prior, and I look up this kid. There he is, and he had passed away 6 months ago. And just what he told me is same photo, same guy. So these are real people that we're interacting with. It's not a self-contained world, but the astral plane, the middle astral, is a parallel society to our own that's corresponding to to our world right now. This leads to discussion. So have you received any similar information from your own communications with the other side? That's what I've talked about tonight. What do you plan to do once you get over there? Are you desiring to not go to this middle astral level at all? I know some people who just hate the idea of going here. Like it's in their bones to not want to go there. They want to go to some kind of completely alien environment that and then completely leave human civilization behind. Is that you? Or do you want to go there? Why or why not? Is the middle astral an accurate terminology? Are we just rehashing old spiritualist ideas? Is it not like that at all? Why call something the middle? What does that even mean? Is it still relevant? So those are some questions that I'll throw your guys' way, and I'll go ahead and stop the share, and I'll turn it over to you guys. Whoever wants to just jump in, if you had a burning question, thought, or idea, go ahead, jump in, and let me hear it. Crickets. I'm sure somebody out there has an idea.
I have a question. I always have a question. So are you saying that some of the people do not have a near-death experience when they go on the other side? They just pop over and then they're in their same situation? Like, where you hear about the tunnel, the light, and, relatives from the other side come and get you, and you go through your life review and all that stuff. So they're not having that? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Some people don't seem to have that experience. They just pop over. And maybe that even is related to like being stuck in one mindset, like maybe if they're like, let's say somebody's a materialist, physicalist, atheist type person, and maybe if they saw a tunnel and a light and deceased relatives, maybe they'd lash out in anger, right? So maybe it's like impossible. Maybe maybe that just won't happen, or they wouldn't be able to accept it if it did happen. And so it's like the universe or whatever just like shuts all that down, and they just pop over. And maybe that leads to the same issue with people who are like still living on that side and still ignorant,
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so then does that mean, for instance, my good friend that died several years ago, right after he died, maybe about less than a week after he died, I had a dream about him, and I do think it was a visitation. But I asked him, do you know how this happened? And he said, well, yeah, I need to change my diet, blah, blah, blah. But I just knew that it seemed to me that he didn't know he died. And so it was as if I was with him, because I could feel, and I've told this story before, he always did this, he would dig me in my ribs as a joke, and I could feel it. I woke up and it hurt. I woke up like going sideways. Ouch. There went my chair. Screws fell out of my chair. Sorry. But anyways, was that, what do you think then? He didn't realize? To me, I don't think he knew he was dead. It took him a while. So is that it, Cyrus? Is that what, like, he just didn't know he was dead?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. I think we can probably just estimate, just like what Michelle was saying, is that in these situations they're not having the tunnel and light experience, and that whole thing happened to them because they're just blocking it off, right? And so they appear on that side. They don't know they're dead. and they end up like in that category of people who are just staying ignorant. So, but that does make you think. I wonder if that even relates to like, because a lot of people have cardiac arrest, they don't have near-death experiences.
That's what happened to him. He dropped dead suddenly of a cardiac arrest. Just dropped dead. Boom, just like that. Yeah.
But what I'm
And
saying,
he had warnings, and I warned him months and months and months before, but he wouldn't listen to anyone. And so he finally dropped dead.
and what was he like? Kind of like a materialist or atheist kind of person?
He was not a materialist person, but he was an atheist. He was open, but he didn't have, I would say he was more of an atheist. Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate because it's so often like people in that situation tend to be the atheists. And it's kind of sad because, look, I mean, atheists on this planet, despite how much I dislike like materialism, I mean, there's a lot of like atheist humanists, or like they do a lot of good for the planet because they're really engaged. They think that, okay, well, if there's no higher power, we have to be that higher power. We have to do good for the planet and do good for each other. And, a lot of atheists are really great people, but it's also can lead to like this confusion after they cross over. And that's a bit.
I think he was confused. And I'll just say one more thing and then I'll be quiet. But as I was telling this story, some screws just shot out of my brand new chair that I'm sitting in, just out of the blue. So I know he's always with me, and he's probably giving me a sign.
Maybe he's saying that he gets it now. Maybe he's trying to let us know that it's not, he's no longer.
No, he's okay now. I know he's okay now. Yeah, but it's funny that this just happened to my chair. Okay, sorry guys.
No worries. Okay.
Great story.
So,
So let's see, Keely.
okay, so Cyrus, when you've talked to like your parents or other people, did they have a life review and all that, or no?
It's a great question. I've never asked either of my parents if they had a life review happen to them. It's almost like I always have all these questions I want to ask. Then I come back and I just like I've forgotten half. I was like, oh, why didn't I ask this? Why didn't I? That is a question I need to ask. The next main question I want to get from my mom is her antipasto recipe, because she's famous for antipasto. And I have friends like, did you ever get your mom's antipasto recipe? And if I can, because I don't know it, it'll be great verification for other people that I still talk to her if I can get the recipe from her. But I keep forgetting to ask her that. I'm always asking, like, to me, like the most pertinent questions is, how are you and how's your life? If I don't see my father, like, how is my father doing? Like, those are like the most important questions. And then usually by the time we're done talking about that, and then the experience is about to end, then I never get to like the other questions I want to ask about. Somebody else was about to say something.
I was asking but usually, what about when even if somebody passes like suddenly and it doesn't have any believing of an afterlife, then when you see a loved one that they pass already, that they come, I think that they come to you, and don't people that realize, how can you just think maybe your grandmother come to see you, that she's already dead, and then you still refuse it? And I kind of, all the things I'm learning about spirituality, there are also a guide, your spiritual guide, that they kind of come and try to help you. So it seems like hard to believe that some people, they still don't, thinking that they're not dead, that when they see their grandmother, for example, or whatever, any other loved one that is on the other side, that they come to receive them. So what do you think about that?
I find that difficult to believe also, but it just seems like this is what happens, like sometimes I have to just be like, well, this is just what I experienced, what's reported, you know what I mean? And so sometimes the facts don't make a lot of sense. So I don't know how somebody could see deceased loved ones or be visited by like a guide and then still not believe that they're dead. But apparently this happens.
Maybe they're just really confused.
Huh?
Maybe they're just really confused.
Maybe it takes a while, like Michelle friends, to, especially if you go suddenly because, that you're just like, here and then boom, you're on the other side. I'm just like, it's like, because I think about my son, because for him it was very suddenly, and he was walking and then just boom, he found himself on the other side probably. So, and then, it was not really, they didn't believe too much about religion, these things, but it was really kind of it was really the science, quantum physics, all these things. So I think that maybe that could have helped him to be open with his mind. And when I talked with some medium, they kind of told me that my mom, that she already passed away before my son was there to receive him. And I hope that open up his, mind. Don't be too confused, because it probably was confused. He was just walking with his friend, and this truck came and boom, he was just on the other instantaneously. So I don't know. I just wonder,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess it can be confusing. It's just, to me, it's also a mystery why people would still reject what's happening. But it has to do with human psychology. So human psychology persists, right? So some people don't like that idea. And many people have built like kind of a faith in the afterlife, hoping that human psychology is eradicated and that we become like an angel or we become a supreme being after we die. But the unfortunate reality is that's not what appears to happen. It appears to be your psychology is exactly the same from one moment to the next, which if it's just extremely stubborn, then it could end up in those types of situations. But I also think that's the minority of times. I think most people figure it out. So it is funny, when I hear people being kind of like stuck like that, and then I ask, are they an atheist? Are they materialist? And a lot of times it turns out that they were. So definitely the belief system here manifests, like basically the belief in non-belief manifests as ignorance. Whereas if somebody is like a strong belief, like in Buddhism, like they're going to probably appear in some luxurious Buddhist temple and continue with their studies or whatnot, like it's going to be a very specific path. If you're just kind of like agnostic, liberal-minded, regular person, then you'll probably appear like in your house or anything like that. Maybe if you're a hardcore Catholic, you're going to appear in like a Catholic demiplane, which to me sounds like the worst place imaginable. But hey, for some people, that is their heaven. So, anybody else have any thoughts?
Well, I wanted to ask Cyrus. I'm sorry, Corey.
No, go ahead.
Based on what you had said yesterday, well, it was kind of like a two-part thing. When you put down what happened with you when you did astral travel and what your mom had told you about your dad. So do you think that we sleep over there?
In this particular middle astral level,
yeah. Not
only have I seen day and night cycles, but well, my mom says that you sleep, and that's something that she said that she was very, very specific in pointing that out to me. I asked her this when she materialized into my room, so it wasn't always just me visiting her. Soon after she died, she was coming down into into this room you see behind me, but doing it like in the kind of like out of body stuff. If I went out of body, I could see her, I could feel her sitting next to me. So I'm like, so what is your day-to-day life now like? And she's like, well, what's yours like? She's like, I do stuff in the day, I go to sleep at night, have dreams, wake up in the morning, and all that. So she was very particular about that. In my opinion, it's probably one of those things where if you don't want to do it, you can probably stop doing it, So just like peeing and pooping, to be perfectly honest. I think some people are still doing that because they don't really think of anything better. It's the same reason that some buildings on the astral side have like toilets installed and some don't, because some people figure it out, some people don't. Maybe a business thinks, well, I have to cater to all customers, right? So I should probably keep this thing in here in case somebody's still doing that. But it's one of those things where it's just like all you have to do is just change your way of thinking, and then you probably don't have to do it anymore. But people don't necessarily go on that path, I guess.
Yeah, I do kind of get the impression that that they do. I mean, just based on my conversations with Ashley, but then also when you put that down yesterday, what your mom had said, it was kind of like a validation for me as to what she had already told me, you know, about being able to sleep. Because I went to meditate with her one day and she's like, and I could hear her like yawning. She's like, Mom, I'm still in bed. And I'm like, but you can talk to me from anywhere. She's like, yeah, but I'm tired. And I'm like, and it was like the day after New Year's. So I knew she must have been probably partying. So I was like, okay, let me know when you're ready to talk to me. So, and she did. Later on, she came to me and I knew she was ready to talk. She was awake.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, there's, it's just people will always have a difficult time imagining that somebody might be partying and sleeping on that side. Like, these are all concepts that are just very, very difficult to imagine. But for me, like being on the middle astral level, it's just so freaking similar in some ways to here, but also very, very different. So it's that kind of contrast. But like when you're on the astral level and you're on a street filled with traffic, cars going by, and there's restaurants and people selling stuff and people talking on the street, like when you have an experience like that, it's just like everything else gets thrown out the window. It's like, well, look, this is the other, I'm on the other side, and this is what it's like. And, you know, wow, you know, people is living their lives, people working in shops, people doing their thing, you know, living their human existences still. And it's very much, you know, in my opinion, like what's going on with Ashley, right? So, I mean, so she's describing it that way, but the thing is, so many just do describe it that way. And it's almost like sometimes they have to describe it differently just so that we can understand it, because many of us don't want to believe those things, or we can't conceptualize that idea. And that's really just because I think it's more easy to conceptualize like some kind of dream or a fantasy world or something that's completely like non-physical than to try to wrap one's mind around the way the middle astral really is, which is an Earth-like environment. But really, I mean, it has to be a shift in thinking. So we have to think about, like Jürgen was talking about, how the universe is like layers on an onion that just goes on and on. So if you just peel away one layer of an onion, that's the middle astral. So it's not going to be a whole new onion, is it? Like, it's going to be a little bit different, but that's just one layer. Maybe if you peel back like 55 layers, you're going to be in a very, very different type of place. But if you just peel back that first layer, I mean, it's still going to be a living, breathing world like this one.
Yeah, I think if anything, it helps my grief a lot to know that she's in an area that's, you know, very similar to what she had here. You know, she's not missing out on anything, you know, so that's
a really good point. It's one of the reasons I push home this concept, which is validated again and again and again by mediums and other OBEers and things like that, because specifically I know it helps with grief, because I got into this from the angle of wanting to help people who are grieving. So that's why I do the work that I do. I don't do it just because I'm whatever reason might be, like I want to just, I don't know. I mean, I am a researcher, but it's not because I just want to learn every single little thing about the afterlife. I do it because I know that people are grieving and they need to know this information. And so what I learned early on is that the kind of mainstream spiritualist ideas is like, well, you know, your daughter is now an orb of light in a sea of like prismatic lava lamp colors, and you know, they have no conception of who they once were, and all these types of things was not only like inaccurate, but tended to be damaging. And the reason I think it is damaging is because what's natural to us is natural progression of who we are. So the idea of anybody being somebody other than who they were before, I think it feels very distressing to us. So even in my experience, I spoke about recently being in my home and finding out that my dad basically still has like addiction issues on that side. On one hand, that sucks. But on the other hand, I wouldn't expect anything less, because he still hasn't done the work necessary to get over those types of issues. And so I hope that he can get over it on that side, but at some point something needs to click, and he needs to evaluate his life and figure out what really matters. And I don't know when or how that's going to happen, but I'd feel really weird if my dad was some kind of like perfect angelic entity now, because that's the last thing he was. So it wouldn't even make any sense to me. It wouldn't still be my father. Like, if he's ever going to reach that point, like, he's got to earn it. And so in some ways, I mean, for some people, these facts are really difficult to swallow, and some people reject it. Like, even on the group and afterlife topic, some people got pissed off reading my astral projection account because They're like, there's no way this could be happening. We're supposed to be like angels and perfect beings after we die. And like one lady got angry and left the group. But this is just I mean, to me, it's just these are facts, so we can either accept them and figure them out or not. But at the end of the day, these facts, it makes the most sense to us. You know, I do think that there's like old souls. I do think there's people who die here, and then they are like these angelic beings because they came from that level originally. But we can't expect that of everybody, I guess. I don't mean to hog the microphone.
To say to Brenda, that also for me makes me feel with my grief, thinking that my son Nicholas is keep going what this was doing here, because you know they were young, and I was wondering maybe if she knows Ashley, your daughter, since we know each other. Who knows? Maybe they know each other.
Well, there have been, maybe Brenda, you could elaborate on a little bit, because it's been people from helping, like children from helping parents heal, connecting on that side. And, you know, we have been seeing like those kids just appeared in Rinaldi's photography, from the Astral research station.
Yeah, and Brian's daughter Shayna came to me.
Oh,
and,
really?
and I was able to get the validate. I text Brian at like 10 o'clock at night because I needed to make sure I was really hearing Shayna. And I had a lot of validations. She even kept calling me Miss Brenda, and she showed me things in her bedroom. So I texted Brian and I said, I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, and he validated everything for me. And he said, oh wow, Brenda, that's really good. And I said they are giving me the validations to let me know that I'm really hearing Ashley. I said, so it's helping both of us. So she is bringing more kids with her when she comes. She brought another person's son to me the other day and another person's son. So it's cool because then I know I can hear her. So maybe she'll bring Nicholas one day too.
Yeah, maybe I just trying to tell Nicholas to come to you because there are a lot of kids there, they know each other. They're friends too from helping parents healing, because that's how, you know, they.
Yeah, she says they all hang out because we all know each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's really great because it also keeps awareness going for them on that side about what the situation is, because it's easy for them to forget that because a lot of them are seeing you guys when you guys are asleep. So like you're seeing Ashley, Brenda, like when you're sleeping, but they have to remind themselves that when the version of us that they're hanging out with is not the same version of us here that has no memory. So it's kind of like, imagine you're dealing with like in a hospital with a patient who keeps getting amnesia. And so it's like they have to remind themselves of that. And what's great, I think, about helping parents heal is I think it's like keeps that perspective in place so that they know to keep staying in touch with like the versions of us that doesn't return with that memory, you know, the earth plane versions of whatever you want to call it. And also it's created an atmosphere of people from that side, people's children coming together and then helping out their parents on this side. And this is all new territory. I mean, clearly this never happened before. So like with that group, I think there's just like new stuff is happening every year. It's crazy and it's great. Corey, a while back, you were going to say something, but I didn't get to you.
I was just having a thought when you guys were talking about people dying and not knowing they were dead. I think the thought went back to what I was saying earlier about how if we have parallel existences, you know, if your existence there is doing what it normally does, and then the existence here dies, and yet it doesn't, you somehow don't pull that information back, how would you know? What would ever trigger it what would ever trigger you to know that you merged or came back? I don't know. It's hard to believe, let's put it that way, but I'm grasping at straws. I'm trying to figure out how somebody could not.
Yeah, maybe that it is possible that I think some people don't have the parallel lives on that side. And somebody who's like ignorant, they may not merge like with their astral self because they don't have an astral self. And that could again be related to like the ignorance of the belief system, right? So like some people don't dream. I think if somebody's not having dreams, that's an indication that they might be freeballing it here on this side. They don't have a life on that side, so they have nothing to merge back into. So they die here, and they don't get memories of the life on that side. They just, nothing changes at all. So that's one possibility. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
But does anybody else have any thoughts though about this topic, like the sociological research, what they think of us on this side, or any of those specifics that I went into in the presentation? No, are we over it? No.
Shelly,
good stuff.
Shelly's talking, but she's muted.
Who? What?
Shelly's talking, but she's muted.
Oh, Shelly, were you talking?
Oh, lots of questions, but lots of things to think about. So that's a good thing about the class. Lots of things to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about. And are there any like misconceptions that you guys have dealt with, the things that you felt were misconceptions or things that couldn't be true that you've heard like on some of the groups or people talking about? Because to me, all the time I hear things that like ties my mind into a knot, and I'm like, well, this doesn't apply to like my own experiences, and I'm like, how do I make sense of this? But has anybody here had any issues with that, or something that they just can't figure out?
I'm just not that deep yet.
I mean, maybe. I mean, things that like irritate me, like, oh, we're all going to become orbs, or it doesn't matter what you do. We're all going to some great place, so we can be horrible people, and it's just the plan that really irritates the heck out of me. Is that what you're talking about? Like theories, things like that?
That could be one example.
I think it just gives people a license to be a horrible person, like, and I don't know. I just, that one really irritates me.
Yeah, it's the moral relativism. And so, I mean, this kind of relates to like this topic of what the other side is like, because if you think about like natural law, I just feel like it has to kind of be this way, right? So
Yeah.
if the other side wasn't this way, then it would call into question like kind of the spiritual purpose of incarnation in general, right? So like we become these, let's okay, we want to say, so let's say we all came from the causal plane, the non-physical. It's a big cosmic soup of souls continually being created. And then those souls are like, well, let's have individual existences in physical environments and learn about right and wrong and consequences and self-development and become greater versions of ourselves. So they incarnate here. But then if, we have our life here, but then we just go straight back to that level of existence, it's kind of like, makes it a little bit pointless almost, especially if we have all these flaws and things we have to take care of and still grow and develop. Because our lives here are really, really short, but like on the astral plane, I mean, you could be living there for hundreds of years. Like it's not the same as here. So, so it just doesn't make any sense from like a logical point of view.
No.
That, you have a life here, but then none of those lessons matter because you go back to a perfect existence. But a lot of people push that idea, especially like in a couple of the near-death experience authors, and they forcefully push that idea, like they want to accept something else. And I feel like people more aligned to like spiritualism are actually more closely aligned to what's really going on, because they care so much about like objective information, right? But the reach is much lower. So I mean, if you go on like YouTube, some like these near-death experience authors, they might have millions of hits on their videos talking about what the afterlife is like, and they're describing it this way. And it really comes down to a matter of also not having the full scope of experience. So like Anita Moorjani, I like her story, and I like her book, but she didn't really experience the afterlife so much as she experienced like her higher self. Mm-hmm. And people can experience that even alive here through like meditation. So it's not like that's what the literal afterlife is like. And so the big point in our society, when I think we'll like cross through with like understanding this topic, is when the people who mostly accept the afterlife from all these very, very popular authors begin to look at by what we talk about as like the literal afterlife versus like this conceptual one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm hogging the microphone again. Does anybody else have any thoughts about that?
No.
Nope. Well, let's see. It's 7:07, so probably wrap up here in just a few. But does anybody have any last like questions or ideas about what about the concept of like the sociological research? So that's something I've been trying to do, which is get people together and ask them like survey questions. Like, is there anything else that's on your mind, or if I'm able to do that again, any questions that you'd like to hear people from like a focus group be able to answer?
So maybe why with the people that decide to come into Lincoln to take, it looks like the level of the astral life is so much nicer. So why they decide to come here to to this level of Earth? To maybe because I heard that this is like a very hard school, so you can you can grow faster, and then so you can go in higher dimension. So can you just from your astral dimension, you maybe takes longer, I guess. I don't know. So, but why, if it's so beautiful, why even want to leave it there and come here? You can take your time to grow over there. I mean, it seems like this hurt is scary, sometimes everything can happen to you anytime, so maybe.
Like I feel like that is the greater spiritual reason, but I feel like residents at the middle astral level, like they're not like connected with their higher selves or whatnot. So to them, I think it's a bit of a mystery. Like that's why I've actually talked about that kind of like that topic, because then I kind of like try to get answers about what they think of this world, and to them it's this kind of weird memory of a life they used to lead, and it's not very positive. And to them, they have, it's almost like the average person doesn't understand like why they had a life on this side. And so it's very surprising when I'm like, I'm from the earth plane, quick, I'm astral projecting, I have 5 minutes left, tell me, tell me this and that. And to them it's like that's like their version of a paranormal experience, I think. Like,
Yes.
That's crazy.
Does their spiritual guides ever show up? Like, does your mom's spirit guides ever come visit or anything like that? Or
That's a good question.
Yeah, I've never experienced it, and I think it's because like the real spirit guides are like they're higher dimensional entities. That we can think of the middle astral as the fourth dimension. And you might have a guide coming in from like the sixth dimension, and so you wouldn't maybe even be able to physically see them. So on that side, it's almost like you can have these like what we see as a spiritual experience here, like it happens to them on that side, so they feel a presence or like a light comes into the room or something like that. And this could be like a higher dimensional entity who is visiting them, but it's less likely to be able to see them like in the solid form on that astral side, because they're so many levels higher, I think. So that's kind of what I think is going on. I also think that these higher entities can incarnate both on this side and on the astral side and look like us too. But I think that's kind of like a special thing too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. There isn't, I mean, I found that, yeah, there's still like Paris stuff happening on that side. Like, I think even more so than here. Like there can be on the middle astral level, like you think a haunted house on this side is scary. Like imagine how it is on that side. This is what I've heard.
Yeah.
So like imagine like here a haunted house, you feel a presence, and once in a while a pot flies off a shelf. But on that side, there's actual like goblins and ghouls coming out of closets and things flying all over like it's way crazier. But that just shows you like interdimensional types of things, like they still happen on that side. So like what we call paranormal here, it's like it's still happening there in certain.
Well, the entities would be at a lower vibrational level, so then they probably could see them. Then that would make sense.
Middle astral level, I feel like it can be such a melting pot that there can be like a negative entity hanging around a place, and maybe people will be avoiding it, because I still think it's enough of a melting pot, kind of like here. But it's not quite the same as here, but there can definitely be like negative or more destructive entities intermingled with very positive. And I think that's just a byproduct of being in like basically the fourth dimensional level. It's a lot different than here, but it's not quite different enough. So these kind of higher astral planes we hear about, I think that's when it'd be impossible for like a more negative minded entity to be able to have cohabitate such a place.
But do like the higher beings and like angels or guides or stuff like that, do they kind of keep them more at bay? Like you still have your guide when you're on the other side, don't you, in case you need them?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely I think that there is a continual battle happening with like forces of good and evil, as cliche as that sounds. But whether that involves like security on that side, keeping out negative entities, or it involves your guides keeping you protected, like it's still happening on the fourth dimensional level, like it happens here, but out over there probably it's a lot more in your face, whereas here it's a lot more subtle. All right, so it's almost 15 past, so I guess we're probably going to wrap things up, but hopefully you guys found the presentation to be informative. I'll, again, probably post this on different places. I'm glad we got to talk specifically also about like our close loved ones who are crossed over, like Brenda and Paula, so that maybe it'll be of benefit to other people as well watching this, as well as maybe people in Helping Parents Heal. I do hope that the kids in Helping Parents Heal are continue to meet up with each other on that side, because that can create like a whole new level of like experience that could happen through that organization. And I think that's really, really neat. And I'm happy to that we brought that topic up tonight. And that's about it. So next class. So kind of continuing on this one, but I'm just going to talk about like the psychology of people on that side. So trying to figure out a way to like distinguish that a bit from this class, but it'll probably involve the mindsets that people carry with them compared to here, especially that might relate to how our lives are different here when it comes to kind of like we are in a situation in this world where it goes a lot longer, there's a lot more power like in being kind to people in a rough environment like this. Whereas on that side, I think that without incarnating here, it may be easier to forget about concepts like kindness or love, and that might go into some of those questions about like why are we here. So that'll be the next class. Any final thoughts or questions or anything before we call it a night?
No, thank you. It's great.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys, and thanks for being patrons of Afterlife Topics. And again, to anybody not in the classes who are joining us and watching tonight, then you can get involved as well at afterlifetopics.com. And yeah, keep on, exploring, because we're all figuring this stuff out together, and that's what matters. And who knows where we'll be at in another couple of years. Every year we're learning new things and developing this body of knowledge. All right, well, I'll see you guys hopefully in the next class, and until next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.